It's the Dep Lewis Show. The Dep Lewis Show. It's the Dep Lewis Show. It's the Dep Lewis Show. The Dep Lewis Show. It's the Dep Lewis Show. It's the Dep Lewis Show. The Dep Lewis Show. It's the Dep Lewis Show.
Welcome to the Dep Lewis Show, episode 123. This is your host, Dep Lewis, and today is Sunday, April 6th, 2025. A great day for a podcast about video games and more. So I hope you're doing great out there in the world. Thank you for being here. This is going to be an outstanding episode, is what I am predicting, because there is some great information to talk about in the video game world. So just want to start off by saying that the first order of business is to ask you to follow Dep Lewis Show everywhere. Full episodes of Dep Lewis Show available anywhere you find a podcast. Find the best place to subscribe and listen weekly. Places like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, Amazon Music, and more. Twitch.tv/Dep Lewis Show is a great place to follow. I've been streaming every Sunday, or maybe 4 or 5 weeks now. Sunday afternoon, Eastern Standard Time in the United States for a couple hours and playing some video games. So I plan on continuing that trend. So check me out on twitch.tv/Dep Lewis Show. And if you'd like to support the show even further than just listening, patreon.com/Dep Lewis Show is available if you'd like to subscribe monthly. Also, Venmo at Dep Lewis Show is available any day, anytime, for any amount if you'd like to support the show. So for today's show, we're going to have our 3 sections. As always, the first section is going to be extra short and sweet so we can get to the middle section. But the first section is going to be what video games I've been playing since I last talked to you on this microphone. The middle section is the mid section. It's not mid in quality, is all the video game news information you need to know. And in the past week, the Nintendo Switch 2 was fully announced. So we are going to talk all about that in the middle section of the show. And it is going to be great. So very exciting stuff there in the middle section, talking all about the new Nintendo Switch 2, all the details we have, and then all my thoughts on that. And the third and final section, the Miscellaneous Talk section, is the final section of the show, where I can talk about anything I want to outside of the video game world. So I usually like to get into the worldwide world of sports, and that will be the case today. So let's get into this. This is the Nintendo Switch 2, official reveal episode, and that is what we're here to talk about. But first, I want to tell you about what I've been playing. Last week, I did some streaming on Sunday. Last week, I was playing, the prior week, I was playing a lot of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. I played some into this week, but last Sunday, I completed a campaign run. I completed another run that day with Darth Maul, who's an unlockable character. And then Wolverine is also another unlockable character in that game. So some pretty good memories there. I kind of forgot those extra characters were in the game, and it gave me a good reason to go through and complete the campaign a couple of times. So I think I completed this game 3 times in recent history. So some other thoughts on this. This is one of my favorite games of all time, so it's been really fun to go back to it. The remake or remaster of 3+4 is coming out later this year, so this was kind of like a taste test of dipping back into the Pro Skater 3 water. So some of my notes here were I forgot Cruise Ship was a secret level unlock at the end of the Tokyo competition. So my favorite map in Tony Hawk history, I believe, is the Cruise Ship, and it's one of the most fun multiplayer levels. It has one of the best vert sections at the bottom of the cruise ship to get a lot of points at, and it's one of my favorite places to skate in all of Tony Hawk because it's just really good for getting combos and points and things like that. So cruise ship, I think, is a extremely OP level out there in the Tony Hawk world. I talked about unlocking some characters, so there's all sorts of cool characters in this game, and then there are alternate objectives sometimes when you play. I kind of forgot about this. So sometimes, like if I played a campaign with Darth Maul and then I play with Wolverine next, some of the skate locations might be in different locations. Some of the objectives might be slightly different. You have to do a different move over a different jump and things like that. So there are some slight variations, which is pretty interesting and something I wasn't completely remembering. I was kind of thinking all the objectives were always the same. So I wonder if that will be the case in the new version or the remastered version. But I believe the remastered version adds a lot more objectives than are originally in the game. So it should have its kind of own modern spin on the game, along with the base maps and the characters and the movesets and all that. But they add some different objectives into these remasters, which I think is a nice remix. But after playing this, I do have a little bit less, anticipation or excitement for getting the remaster, because this game still plays perfectly fine and it controls extremely well. It doesn't look particularly great on the old platforms, but it definitely controls really great. It's still fun to play. The music in the game is awesome. The music is extremely important to Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk 3 back in the day, I played on the Xbox though, and would pipe in my own music that I had ripped onto the Xbox. So you could rip your CDs onto the Xbox and play them in the background in particular games. So that was pretty useful back in the day. But I've completed Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. I'm adding that onto the list of games I completed this year. This is a game I've completed many times before, but I just haven't played probably in I don't know, it could be 2 decades. It could be a really long time since I played this game. So it's been really fun to go back to it. It is one of my favorite games of all time, and I think it holds up as one of those. So, hey, and I did a ranking the other week of my favorite video games of all time, and I definitely left out some Uncharted. I definitely left out a few other games as well. Uncharted 2 was one. Maybe Mass Effect 2. There was a couple other 2s, maybe Street Fighter 4. There were some games that I would maybe sneak onto the list, but I'm going to revisit my favorite video games of all time from time to time. So that was just kind of my place and time. But upon a little bit of reflection and talking to a friend of the show, Pab, he was reminding me of some holes in my top 10 list for myself. He was reminding me of some games that I liked that I forgot. So I'm a pretty useful friend there. But Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, an amazing video game, and I would say definitely look forward to the remake. All right, what else did I play in this past week? I played some Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube. I completed Area 1. This is the original release from 2001. This is my recent retro video game pickup and something I've been really, really wanting to play. And so I've learned that this game is actually pretty short. So hopefully this can be another game I complete for this year. I already have Luigi's Mansion 2 and 3 on the Switch and would love to complete the trilogy. So that is a little bit of a plan here on the Dep Lewis Show. So I've been playing some Luigi's Mansion, and hopefully we'll continue to do some more of that. I'm actually going to mention a little bit of Luigi's Mansion later in the show, so that's a little bit of a teaser. All right, another game that I've been playing has been some Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. This game came out earlier in the year. I just picked it up and I just started playing this. I've never really played too much of this game. I played a little bit on the 3DS, but I never played it. I guess it originally came out on the Wii. I'm really hyped for some Donkey Kong. We're going to talk more about that later too. And this was a little bit of a reaction to that news. Wanting to get back in the Donkey Kong world, realizing that I really enjoy this character and I do enjoy some side-scrolling platforming. So it's been extremely fun. I can see that there is some difficulty in this game. I've been playing the opening levels over and over a few times, trying to just get my bearings and get some better Donkey Kong skills, and they're actually really fun to play. And you're building up lives and getting more coins and things like that, or getting more currency to spend. The controls feel tight. The music is excellent. So this is an outstanding video game. So something I've been wanting to pick up since it came out, and I think is going to hopefully, tide me over until another particular release comes out that we're going to talk about in the midsection, because that's what we're here for today. We're here for the Nintendo Switch 2 information. So that's going to be the entire middle section of the show today. We're going to talk all about the Switch 2. I'm going to give you all the details. I'm going to give you all the updates. Today is Sunday, April 6th. The Switch 2 was completely revealed on Wednesday, April 2nd. There has been, a roller coaster of information. There's been updates. There's been changes. So it is nice to be a few days out and kind of give you a summary of what's going on. But it's totally going to be a snapshot in time, just like this podcast always is, where the news is currently now with the Nintendo Switch 2. So that is going to be the midsection of the show. So we're going to wrap up this first section. I've been telling you about what I've been playing: some Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, some Luigi's Mansion, and some Donkey Kong Returns HD. And I plan on playing these games in the upcoming week and possibly on stream today, but I think I'm going to stream some Breath of the Wild. That's what I've been trying to do on stream on Sundays for most of the time. So, hey, one other thing I want to remind you, there's a Splatfest coming out next weekend. So I'm going to be playing in the Splatfest. Something that I just saw the other day. I've mainly been looking at Switch 2 information, but I'm definitely going to be talking some about that next week and playing that next weekend. So just a little heads up of a upcoming Splatfest for Splatoon 3, a wonderful, outstanding, lovely video game. So, those are all my personal video game thoughts, what I've been playing during the week, and we are going to wrap up this first section of the show. So we're going to hear some lovely break music, and we're going to come back for the midsection where I tell you everything you need to know about the Nintendo Switch 2 and where we stand with all the information, everything you need to know at this point in time after this music. Welcome back to the midsection of Dep Lewis Show, episode 123. This is where I tell you about what is going on around the video game world that you need to know. And the main thing from last week you need to know is that the Nintendo Switch 2 has been officially unveiled, revealed, detailed, and there was a lot of more information about the Nintendo Switch 2 that we know now than we did last week. So that is one positive. There are still some things to be determined. There's been some issues, since the announcement, and some changes and things like that, but we're going to talk all about it and where things stand currently on this Sunday, a few days removed from the official Nintendo Switch 2 announcement. So this direct took place on Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025, was around an hour in length, and they have announced that the Nintendo Switch 2, so this is one of the main pieces of information we all wanted to know. The Nintendo Switch 2 will release Thursday, June 5th, 2025, so not too far off. Only a couple months away. And as far as I can tell, that date is still the target. So there's some changes going on here with the release, but they're still targeting a June 5th, 2025 release date for the Nintendo Switch 2, which is going to be the next evolution of the Nintendo Switch system. It's going to bring games to life with a larger 1080p screen or connect to a TV and play in up to 4K resolution. Support for HDR, VRR, and frame rates up to 120 frames per second let you enjoy vivid color, clarity, and smooth gameplay. So no price or pre-order date was announced until after the show, but we got the information after the show kind of leaked out or was confirmed shortly after the show that this console was going to be able to be pre-ordered on April 9th, 2025, and they were going to sell two SKUs. We're going to have a $449.99 US dollars for the Switch 2 console, and then $499.99 US dollars for the Switch 2 console plus a Mario Kart World bundle. So this was the information that came out slightly after the Direct, and then about, 24 hours later, Nintendo updates us in the United States with some more information. So they tell us that pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch 2 in the US will not start April 9th, 2025 in order to assess the potential impact of tariffs and evolving market conditions. Nintendo will update timing at a later date. The launch date of June 5th, 2025 is unchanged. So, this was very disappointing to me as a United States resident and someone who's been waiting on the Switch 2 announcement and hoping to get one. So, slightly disappointing in the grand scheme of things. It seems like this console is still going to come out, but I'm going to have to wait a little bit longer to try to get one of these pre-orders. And the other thing here is the potential for a price increase. So it seems likely, especially with these tariffs and things they're talking about, that the reason they're delaying this pre-order is to see what they want to set the price at. So I would not like to pay a higher price. I know everyone was, I think more than half of the people out there, just things I've seen online, were pretty upset about the price announcement, the original price announcement of the $450 and $500 for the two SKUs. People were pretty upset with that in general, and then it was pretty wild to see that they are going to delay the pre-orders and have a potential price increase along with that. So going to be some pretty difficult messaging out there for Nintendo to give to the public, and I hope we can get that information sooner than later. I hope we would get the information by next week. I don't think we're going to get it this weekend. We haven't got it at this current place in time. What we're going to do in the United States for the pre-orders, I believe the UK pre-orders have already taken place and sold out instantly. I don't know if that's happened in any other territories yet, but it was pretty wild because after the direct, and then the leaks and the information, the reports after that confirmed the pre-order date and the prices, websites started popping up there, pages for the Switch 2. And you want to register your interest. So Best Buy did that. Who else had a page? GameStop had one. Nintendo directly was saying, if you're interested in this, please let us know. We're going to put you on the email list. And Nintendo apparently is going to offer this first to people who are Nintendo Switch Online members. There's some different criteria. If you played a certain amount of hours since you've owned the console, those kind of things. So they're trying to reduce on some of the scalping stuff there, which was some decent information. But I think the uncertainty around the pre-order date in the United States is the biggest concern for the Nintendo Switch 2 right now. And then I think the price is the biggest concern for everyone in general for this console. So my take on it is it's definitely expensive. I think it's still in the range of this $450 or $500. That's something I would be trying to get. I think if they're going to announce a giant price increase, it could put it out of that range. It's going to be pretty tempting if it's available for me to purchase, because this is something I really do want and anticipate having at some point. But I don't know if it's something. It's certainly not something that people need to have right away, but it's definitely a nice luxury and something I'm still keen on trying to get one. But I'm waiting to see what they're going to announce with the prices and the pre-order date in the United States, and hopefully next week on this show I'll have that confirmation, and hopefully we'll all have that confirmation. But if you were able to pre-order a Nintendo Switch 2 out there anywhere in the world currently, congratulations to you. I think overall this thing's looking really great. I think some of the details here are a little murky, but I think overall down the road, I think I'm going to be happy with this console. So at this time, pre-orders in the United States, unavailable, unknown when they're going to happen. Price, a little bit up in question, but across the world, it looks like the prices for this is going to be $450 for the console and then $500 for the console plus Mario Kart World, which is a pretty good deal with that bundle with Mario Kart World. So, I've told you a little bit about the console, a little bit about the price, or about the pricing and the pre-order stuff. So let's get into some of the software announced, because this is really, I think, the biggest sales point or the sales factor for these consoles is having some exclusive software that really wants to make you upgrade. And I think they did enough for me going into the after this show of showing off software that have me anticipating the console even more. So Mario Kart World is a game that's been announced, and it's going to release on June 5th along with the console 2025. It's going to cost $79.99 US dollars, or $80. So we're seeing a price increase in video games here, or one particular video game. So there's been a lot of hoopla over these prices. And my general take on this, we've been hearing people talk about Grand Theft Auto 6 for a long time, saying, hey, how much are they going to charge for this game? Are they going to raise the price? And the reason they can raise the price is because they know people are going to pay it. So these games, I think, are a little bit in a different tier of video games, that they pretty much need to release a good product, and it's going to sell like wildfire. So I don't think the question of this game selling well is really one that is a reality. So I don't think it's correct, but I think they can make this game a higher price, and people are going to pay it regardless here. So I think that's what they're doing. I really do think this is a little bit of a flexing of the muscle of Nintendo here. And you can pay it, you cannot pay it. You definitely can be upset about it, but it's just the reality. I don't think they're going to come through and reduce this price. I think Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, is a smashing success. It was the best game on the Switch 1, so they're trying to recreate that here. They're trying to have some pack-ins with it. That's going to automatically get the numbers really, really up there. And with the pack-in, you're also getting the game for $50 as opposed to $80. So some differences going on here. And the price increase, definitely something to be upset about. I think it's definitely to be expected, just with the way the world's going. Everything is more expensive these days, which I'm not happy about, but it's just how it's going. And I don't think every game on the Switch is going to cost $80. There's going to be another game we talk about just after this. It's going to be the $70 range. The $70 range is something that they've been pushing to in the last couple of years. So I don't think that is completely new and completely on Nintendo here. Other, major AAA games have been charging $70. I think the first one we saw with Nintendo was The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. So you're saying here that they know what games are their bread and butter, and they're buttering this bread with the money from our pockets. So Mario Kart World is going to release it's a launch title, June 5th, 2025, $79.99, or you can get it with a pack-in bundle if you're able to get one. I think it's a little bit unclear on how easy it's going to be to get the actual pack-in bundle as opposed to the console by itself, but I am over here waiting and looking on when I can try to do so on multiple different retailers. But in Mario Kart World, you can start your engine and race across a sprawling world. Everywhere is your race course. You can hit the open road with Mario and friends, zip around courses in a vast world where everything is connected, race along grassy plains, bustling cities, wide open waters, big old volcanoes, and more, plus everything in between exclusively for the Nintendo Switch 2 system. So go beyond the course. There's more to racing than just the course. Hop off the course and race the distance to the next one. You can burn rubber in 24 driver races, so 24 drivers is a new thing to Mario Kart. The different modes in this game, they have a Grand Prix, where you can compete to earn the most points across 4 connected courses, try to claim the top spot among 24 racers. The areas between the courses are part of the race too, so everyone's been talking about this as Mario Kart mixed with Forza Horizon, and I really love that comparison, and I really do enjoy both of those games, and I think this mashup of this is extremely cool. So I'm all in on this Mario Kart game for sure. Mario Kart's not something I play daily or regularly, but I can see myself playing this more often upon release, and it's just a great game to have in your collection or in your arsenal to play, potentially online or with friends or just on a random day. It's just a really outstanding, great video game, and I've had a lot of fun with Mario Kart over the years. So talking about some different modes, we talked about Grand Prix. They have Knockout Tour, which is where you barrel through back-to-back courses with no pit stops along the way. If you don't place high enough by the time you reach each of the 5 checkpoints, you're out. Drive hard to survive and aim for first place. So I could see myself definitely playing a lot of this. It's almost like a roguelite Mario Kart mode, and see how far you can get. You could listen to this podcast while you play it. You could listen to some music. You could be having baseball on the side. I think that would be a kind of a great casual side kick kind of game right there, or mode. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So Knockout Tour, and then Free Roam is another mode they're touting for this game. Drive wherever your heart takes you. Where to? That's up to you. Take off in any direction in this new mode. Explore areas that pique your interest, and maybe even snap some in-game pics at scenic spots. So Mario Kart World looking like a fantastic video game. It's going to cost $80 is the price point right now. I guess some of these price points for the US in particular are up in question, so we will see, and I will keep you up to date on this show as always. So I'm talking about more of the games that I think look interesting from the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal and official release. And I think the coolest one to me, the thing that has me hook, line, and sinker wanting to buy one of these consoles, is Donkey Kong Bonanza. So this is definitely the S tier, the highlight, the showstopper for me with this show. And this is the one I want to get this console for, and we're gonna have a month after the release to try to get one. So this game, Donkey Kong Bonanza, is going to release on July 17th, 2025. So just about a month after the official release of the console. It's going to cost $69.99 US dollars. So following the the Tears of the Kingdom trend with pricing, it's only going to be on Nintendo Switch 2, a groundbreaking adventure starring Donkey Kong. The big guy is back. Donkey Kong swings onto the Nintendo Switch 2 system with a brand new action adventure. Help Donkey Kong make his way through the depths of the underground world. The deeper he goes, the more amazing places he finds. Void Co. stole every breathtaking bunch of bananas. Now Donkey Kong must venture deep underground to get them back. Can Donkey Kong recover his beloved bananas? You'll have to play Donkey Kong Bonanza on July 17, 2025 to find out. So Nintendo doesn't often like to unveil who is developing the game or making it. We usually have to wait till we see the credits of the video game, but this definitely looks like the Mario Odyssey team. There is a lot of Mario Odyssey-ness to this game, and there was also some Astrobot looking kind of stuff to this game with I think it's just the fidelity and the amount of things on screen, the amount of things you can blast through. And then a lot of people have been comparing this to Red Faction Guerrilla, saying that you can terraform the world with Donkey Kong. So I think that's one of the main gameplay functions of Donkey Kong, is to go around acting a fool, busting and breaking everything and running through it in Donkey Kong style. So just looks extremely fun. Action, platforming. It has 2D sections in there as well, so they're adding, they do a really good job in the Mario games in general, I guess in the Donkey Kong games and some of their games, of having the old mixed in with the new, or the different style mixed in with the new. I think that's just extremely cool, and overall, I think I would want a 3D game. This is something, we haven't had a 3D Donkey Kong since the N64. That's one of my favorite games from that system. I have a lot of nostalgia for Donkey Kong 64, and I was just extremely excited to see this. So this is my number one, I think, anticipated game of all video games right now, and something I'm hoping I really can get a Switch to so I can play this. So that's the plan. So new Donkey Kong Bonanza releasing on July 17th, 2025. I'm trying to think what else I want to say about this game. The new style of Donkey Kong is more cartoony, and I think I really enjoyed it. I think it's a cool take. I think oftentimes when they try to update character style, it's a failure. And I think this one is a complete home run. I think it looks so cool. I think the kind of goofy art style is going to be pretty fun to match with, the breaking and bashing and his destructibility in the world. So he's going to kind of look a little bit cuter, but he's going to be causing more damage, and he's going to be causing that damage on the Nintendo Switch 2 on July 17th, 2025. So that is definitely the number one game. If I had to pick one to play on the Switch 2, it would be this, and it is my most anticipated Switch 2 game currently, Donkey Kong Bonanza. All right, some other games. Let's talk about them. Kirby Air Riders was announced, and this is a brand new title originated from the Nintendo GameCube classic racing action game Kirby Air Ride. It's coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 later this year. No specific date, but they've said 2025. It's directed by Masahiro Sakurai, the creator of the Kirby and Super Smash Bros. Franchise, the 54-year-old developer and creator. So pretty amazing resume right there, and pedigree and history. The prior game, Kirby Air Ride, is a 2003 racing video game starring Kirby, developed by HAL Laboratory and published by Nintendo for the GameCube. So Kirby Air Ride has the players and computer-controlled racers ride on air machines. So Kirby Air Ride is getting a new release. It also has Sakurai back on board, so pretty interesting stuff there. I never played Kirby Air Ride back in the day, but I would definitely be excited to play this. I'm a fan of Sakurai's games. I'm a fan of Kirby. I'm a fan of some racers, and I think this could be a perfect game and a really cool, kind of unexpected release for me, bringing back. Kirby Air Ride is definitely an expensive game on the Nintendo GameCube currently. I believe it's probably in the $70 or more price range. So something that is a pricey GameCube game. We're going to have a new release in the franchise, and hopefully it can be improved and be better even than Kirby Air Ride. So Kirby Air Riders has been announced. Some other games that have been announced. This one right here, I think, was a showstopper for many for this show. I don't know if this is my particular style of game. I've dabbled in it a little bit, but I think this is just an extremely cool thing in general. And this game has been announced, and it's called the Dusk Bloods. So this is going to release on 2026 for Nintendo Switch. It's directed by Hidetaka Miyazaki, who works at From Software. If you've ever heard of From Software, games like Elden Ring, Sekiro, Dark Souls, Demon Souls. And then Miyazaki has been the designer for the Armored Core series, and he is the creator of the Dark Souls series. So they have the one you want making this game, and that 50-year-old developer. So pretty wild. I was looking up their ages of Miyazaki, no, of Sakurai and then Miyazaki, and there's some pretty young guys out here in the world with extremely incredible resumes and still producing some video games that are going to be want to be played by millions of people. So the Dusk Bloods is coming in 2026, a From Software game on the Nintendo Switch 2. The moon tears will flow for one and one alone in Dusk Bloods, a brand new multiplayer title from the creators of Dark Souls and Elden Ring. From Software, available exclusively for Nintendo Switch 2. So a multiplayer title is something in there, maybe a little bit of a turnoff for me, but I do think this is extremely cool in general. So we have a From Software exclusive for the Nintendo Switch 2. That is pretty cool. The game's protagonists or characters controlled by the player are known as Bloodsworn. They are a group whose members have achieved superhuman abilities through the power of special blood. As a general concept, they're similar to vampires, but they are not portrayed as the horrifying monsters you might associate with traditional vampirism. So, very spooky, very gothic, very interesting, and I think a lot of people are going to be excited to play this, and you're going to have to play it on the Switch too. So, pretty interesting release right there. I don't know if this will be something I want to play, but I've definitely had some fun with some From Software games. Maybe I will be more of a From Software fan in the future. I think it's just pretty amazing that Nintendo is going to have a From Software exclusive. I don't know if anybody would have really had that on their bingo card before this Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, and I think it's just a really cool release and a cool direction for Nintendo. This is definitely like a mature rated game. Definitely not something that is comparable to Kirby Air Riders or anything like that. So we're seeing some more capabilities with the Switch 2 and an exclusive game like this, and we're going to talk about some third-party stuff too that is going to make this more of a formidable console all around besides just Nintendo exclusive. So the Dusk Bloods is releasing 2026 for Nintendo Switch. Another game they showed off that we've been told about, we heard about last week in the Nintendo Switch, in the final Nintendo Switch 1 Direct, but they have told us that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is going to have a Nintendo Switch 2 edition. So I'm going to tell you about these Nintendo Switch 2 editions and some of the upgrades and things like that, because that's been a big question of how the Switch 1 games are going to work on the Switch 2 and all of those details. So I'm going to have a lot of those coming up here in this midsection. But Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is getting a Nintendo Switch 2 edition. Is going to be available 2025. We still have no specific date for either version. In this game, the galaxy's greatest bounty hunter, Samus Aran, must explore the mysterious planet Vuros to find a way home. The Nintendo Switch, and this is something to note here. The Nintendo Switch 2 edition of a game is a bundle that includes the original game and its upgrade pack, which enhances the game to take advantage of the capabilities of the Nintendo Switch 2 system. It's available only for select games. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more once we start talking about some hardware stuff. But we're kind of talking about the video games and the software that's interesting to me that's been announced. So thinking of some third-party stuff, Hades 2 has been announced. I believe there's no official date for this. This has been in early access on the PC, but it's coming to Nintendo Switch too. So Battle Beyond the Underworld, using dark sorcery to take on the Titan of Time in this bewitching sequel. The game is coming first on console to both Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2. So pretty damn cool right there. Hades 1 I had a lot of fun with, something I wish I played more of and would like to play more of. But Hades 2 has been something I've been interested in playing the early access and possibly just waiting to play Hades 2 to put all my efforts into Hades 2. Something I think looks extremely cool. I think it looks like a great sequel and something I'm excited to play. And I'm going to be playing it on my Nintendo Switch 2 hopefully. So they announced a lot of games that are coming to the Switch 2. Kind of talking about third-party stuff right now. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. So that is the first of the remake trilogy for Final Fantasy VII. A reimagining of the iconic original with unforgettable characters, a mind-blowing story, and epic battles is going to be coming to Nintendo Switch 2. They also showed off, in a sizzle reel just for a few seconds, Hollow Knight Silksong. And it said coming in 2025, so a little bit of an update there. I guess it's like the groundhog. The Hollow Knight Silksong popped its head out to say, hey, we're still coming this year. In Hollow Knight Silksong, you can ascend to the peak of a haunted kingdom, arriving on Nintendo Switch 2 later this year. It's Team Cherry's sequel to the award-winning action-adventure Hollow Knight, and discover a vast haunted kingdom, explore, fight, and survive as you ascend to the peak of a land ruled by silk and song. So something that everyone's been waiting on. It's one of the most anticipated video games in all the video games right now, and something that I'll be excited to see be released. So Hollow Knight Silksong shown off in this direct, and I think they did it in a cool way. I think it was cool of them just to show it a little bit. I guess if they don't want to reveal the date yet, or they want to reveal the date in a bigger kind of scenario or format for themselves for Team Cherry, I think that's pretty cool. But of all places, the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct could have been a great place to release some I was going to say some sturdy information, but some of the information that has been announced hasn't been so sturdy. So I don't know. All this stuff is pretty fluid, as people like to say. So there's been, those are some other third-party games announced, and pretty much all the games that I think are most interesting that have been talked about in this show. There was definitely some other stuff shown that might interest you. So I would say, go watch the VOD. Go watch the video on YouTube of the direct and see if there's anything in there that piques your interest. I try to usually talk about what interests me most, and then kind of think about what are just kind of the big time things for other people in general. But there's got to be some things that slip through the crack there. So please go check it out for yourself. So those are all the games that I'm really anticipated or just really, really interested in talking about. So some other updates for the Switch 2 in general. Nintendo Classics is a new title. So the Nintendo Switch Online Library of Classic Games has been renamed as Nintendo Classics. So something just new for you to know out there. The Nintendo Switch Online Smart Device app will also soon be renamed to the Nintendo Switch app. And then they also announced something coming to this Nintendo Classic. So Nintendo's Switch Online Library of Games are Nintendo GameCube games. So another big announcement for the show, something that's been widely anticipated and very exciting stuff. So Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack members will soon be able to play GameCube games like The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, F-Zero GX, and Soul Calibur 2 on Nintendo Switch 2, with more games coming in the future. Some games include fun in-game options like a retro screen filter and widescreen gameplay. They showed off other games. They don't talk about when these games are coming, but they showed off other games just in the kind of B-roll footage for the GameCube games coming to Nintendo Classics. And those other games shown were Super Mario Sunshine, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, Super Mario Strikers, Chibi Robo Plug into Adventure, Luigi's Mansion, and Pokemon Coliseum. So one thing to note there, that these are very pricey GameCube games currently. As someone who has bought a GameCube in the last year and has been collecting a few games for the console, they are very pricey games, often can be almost up to the $100 mark. And I think this is going to be an outstanding, wonderful, exciting option on ways to play these games if you don't want to go out there and shop for a physical copy. So I think it's cool that they kind of targeted some of the higher price games here. I don't know if that was intentional, but there are really, every one of these games, Wind Waker's probably $80, F-Zero probably $80, Soul Calibur I think is a little more affordable, maybe $40, and then Mario Sunshine around $40 or $50. Fire Emblem I think goes for $100 or maybe $200. Gale of Darkness the same. Mario Strikers is around $60. I think Chibi Robo is a $100 or more game. Luigi's Mansion I just paid $70 for it. Pokemon Coliseum I think is around that or more. So it's some pretty expensive stuff. And for one price of this expansion, Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack could be basically one price of some of these games. So pretty great option and something that is really, really cool for the Switch 2. So with the Nintendo GameCube announcement for Switch 2, they have also announced a wireless controller modeled after the original Nintendo GameCube controller will also be available to Nintendo Switch Online members from the My Nintendo store, offering an optional and even more authentic experience to Nintendo Switch 2 owners. So they tend to do this for their Nintendo Classics catalog. So they have an NES controller, an SNES, an N64, and now they have a GameCube controller on there. So pretty cool. And I love the GameCube controller, one of my favorite controllers of all time. And definitely something to pique my interest here and, pique my wallet's interest. They have a lot of things here trying to pique my wallet's interest and potentially trying to pique it even more. So got to get some money plans together here for the Nintendo Switch 2. So what else do I want to talk about? There's still a lot more to talk about this Nintendo Switch 2. But let's talk about Switch, original Switch games on Switch 2. So a few details here. Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack members playing on Nintendo Switch 2 will soon gain access to upgrade packs for both The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom games, allowing them to enjoy Nintendo Switch 2 editions of these games at no additional cost. Note, you must have either The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom for Nintendo Switch to use the respective upgrade pack. Contents and enhancements of the upgrade pack vary by game. They can include visual improvements, new features, or additional game modes. Features and content of a Nintendo Switch 2 edition can only be played on Nintendo Switch 2. If you already have the original Nintendo Switch game as either a physical or digital version, you can upgrade to the Nintendo Switch 2 edition by purchasing the game's upgrade pack from the Nintendo eShop, My Nintendo Store, or retailers. After you upgrade, the original Nintendo Switch game can still be played on Nintendo Switch, though the features and content of the Nintendo Switch 2 edition can only be played on the Nintendo Switch 2. So other featured Nintendo Switch 2 edition games they've shown off, I don't think it's going to be every game, it doesn't seem like that, but the ones they've shown off other than the ones we've talked about have been Super Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV, Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Starcross World, and Pokemon Legends Z through A. So there's going to be some games that you're going to get a benefit if you're a Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion member. You're going to automatically get the benefit. There's going to be some games you have the option to pay for to upgrade your Nintendo Switch 1 game. And then I'm going to assume some games are just going to run better on Switch 2 just by the upgrade in hardware. So that's kind of my take on it. But I think if a game wants to do some type of significant upgrade, or something like Super Mario Party Jamboree adding Jamboree TV, Kirby's adding the Star-Crossed World, so they're kind of adding some DLC into the games. You're going to have to pay to upgrade on those. But I'm assuming some of these games are just going to look better in general on the Switch 2, and that'll be interesting to see as well. So there's going to be a lot of comparisons done, but I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible for what we're going to expect with the Switch 2. So that's some of the updates on Switch games on Switch 2. Excuse me. So some of the other features they showed off. This is one that I'm not really too excited about, but I think is going to be used by people, is the game chat. And this is the explanation for what is going to be on the C button. So a C button is a new button on the new controller for the Nintendo Switch 2. You can start a chat with friends at any time using the C button and start game chat. So you can share your game screen while chatting to show what you're up to. And for a more personal touch, you can connect face-to-face with a Nintendo Switch 2 camera or another compatible USB-C camera, each sold separately. So we're going to talk about that camera in just a bit here too. But game chat is a new feature, something cool. I think it's interesting that you could show off your potential, what you're playing on the screen, like having a party kind of thing with your friends. You don't necessarily have to even be playing the same game. So I could be playing Donkey Kong Bonanza, and someone else can be playing Kirby Air Strikers, and we can be watching each other and talking. And then I can even have a picture of myself over my gameplay, like they're watching me stream video games. So I think a cool feature. I don't think something I'm really going to use. I'm not really too much of a multiplayer game player at this point. And I definitely, if I do play multiplayer, we usually just kind of do a phone call, a FaceTime or something like that, and just talk outside of the video game in general. Even on consoles where they have built-in chatting, I've still been using it, different types of ways to communicate instead of the game. But I think for younger people, this could be nice, and I think it's just nice to have more options in general. So game chat is going to be a new feature on the Nintendo Switch 2. So talking about some more of the hardware and accessory kind of things, the Joy-Con 2 controllers, they do have the magnets in there that everyone has been, we've been wondering about. It does have the mouse functionality. The updated Joy-Con 2 controllers have motion controls and HD Rumble 2, along with the new C button for easy game chat access and all new mouse controls in compatible games, only for use with the Nintendo Switch 2 system. So they tell us about the new Joy-Cons. They've also announced a new Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller. Take your gaming to the next level with the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller. This controller includes a C button for opening the game chat menu at any time, GL/GR buttons that you can freely map to any button you choose, and an audio jack for headphones and headsets and other features. So I think extremely cool. I think they've also confirmed that you can still use your original Pro controller on the Switch 2. So I think that's a nice option because these Pro controllers are expensive. And I believe this one, unless they want to increase the price in the United States, is currently $79.99 US. So I believe that's $10 more than the current Switch 1 Pro controller. But it's a great controller. They're adding the GL/GR buttons on the back, which is pretty interesting. And these are going to be, free buttons for you to map however you choose. So, I've never really had that on a controller. They sold some elite versions of controllers that allow for this kind of functionality, but I've never, paid the price to play one of those controllers. I don't know if I necessarily need the extra buttons, but I think it's going to be a fun thing to try out. And I think it's a feature that I could end up liking. That's something that I really don't expect, and I'm going to like it as much as I do. So pretty cool here. And I think it's also nice to have a headphone jack on this new Pro controller because the previous one does not. So it's sometimes nice to be able just to plug in some headphones and play and listen to your audio and not have it blaring across your house, your apartment, or wherever you live. So another nice feature on there. But I don't know if I'm going to upgrade to the Pro controller right away because I am still able to use my Pro 1 controller. Using the headphone jack is not something I do too much, but I think some of the new features and just getting a new controller in general, I've had my other one for maybe at least 5 years now, so it's got a lot of wear and tear on it. So at some point, we'll definitely love to own a Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller. So what other things have been announced? They have announced the Nintendo Switch 2 camera, which I mentioned a little bit previously with the game chat. It's going to be a dedicated USB-C camera made especially for the Nintendo Switch 2. So whether in TV mode, tabletop mode, or handheld mode, you can video chat with friends or use other in-game camera features by plugging this camera into the USB-C port on top of the system. Place the Nintendo Switch 2 camera wherever you like and adjust its angle to get the best shot. The lens can capture a wide view too, so even big rooms or groups of people can get in on the fun. Its compact size makes the camera easy to move and place where you need it to be. The wide-angle lens can be freely adjusted to get everyone in on the action no matter the room size. Plus, a high-sensitivity image sensor can adjust the brightness automatically to detect faces. When you're not using the camera, you can cover the lens with a built-in privacy shutter. So, This is a new feature. I don't know if this is something I will use, but interesting enough. And they're also saying you can possibly use some other USB-C cameras besides this one. So there's going to be a list of other supported cameras, so you're not tied in completely to the Nintendo Switch 2 camera, which I think is a great bit of news, but something I wanted to mention here. So the last bit of hardware information to think of, the new dock has a fan in it, so that's something new I can think of, but the new dock pretty much looks identical to the other one, or just a little bit more modernized. I think everything I've heard from people playing and getting their hands on this, it just definitely feels more of a premium product. I'm pretty jealous of all the people getting to play one of these already, and I'm pretty disappointed that the pre-orders have been delayed in the United States. So, that's all the hardware information for you. So that was everything from the Nintendo Direct I wanted to talk about, the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. And the following days after the hour-long Direct that had the reveal of all the information, they had Nintendo Treehouse Lives. They had day 1 and day 2 that took place the 2 days after, so April 3rd and April 4th, 2025. So they showed on hands-on gameplay of Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, and more for Nintendo Switch 2. So you can go check these out on YouTube if you'd like to go see some more shots of gameplay and some more information. I don't generally like to watch tons of information about video games I'm interested in. I like to see some, but I'm not going to seek out tons of extended footage of what's going on in the video game because I kind of want to experience it for myself. But the big news from these Nintendo Treehouse live streams where everyone in the chat was streaming Drop the Price, and that was the first day, everything drop the price, we hate the price. And then the second day, the U.S. delay for the pre-orders got announced, so the chat was just completely getting flamed the entire time. So very uncomfortable for the people streaming and the Nintendo workers. But some of this, they were pretty much the front-facing people for the anger out here. But I think some of this anger is correct. I think it's nice to also think this is a consumer product. It's luxury to have, not something to get really angry over. But you can choose to spend your money on it or not, and you can be disappointed by some of this stuff. But I would say, if you're really angry about this, I don't know if that's the best way to be, using your time on the earth here or wherever you live out there in the world. But the Nintendo Switch 2 has been fully announced. The pre-order was supposed to be in a couple days for the United States. I'm anticipating we get some more information on that in the upcoming week. I think I'm all in on trying to pre-order one of these. I don't know how easy or how able I'm going to be able to get one. I think a little bit of this information, I think if I'm not able to get a pre-order, I'm not going to be too upset. I think I would love to get one. I'd love to have this console in any form or fashion, but if I don't get a pre-order immediately, I don't think I'm going to be too upset. I'm going to be missing out on Donkey Kong a month later, but I have tons of video games to play. I have current Switch 1's games to play. I have crazy backlog. There's other games being released all the time, and I think the amount of games we have to play is wonderful. So, I'm going to be disappointed if I can't get a pre-order, but I am excited to try to do so. I think there's a chance that if they up the price a whole lot, I might not try to get a pre-order, but I'm in a wait and see mode. So I think that's how you should be too. You can make your own decision out here. You don't have to be too upset by it. They can make the decision for what they're going to put the price at, and then you can act accordingly. So, but for my sake, I'm really going to try to get one, and that is what I want to say. So I'm excited about the Nintendo Switch 2. I've been having a section in this midsection every week about the Nintendo Switch 2, so I just anticipate there being a lot of Switch 2 information on this show in the future. Next week, I'd like to incorporate back some regular news and information. There's been some other announcements, but this has been the main thing I've been following, so I just wanted to have this whole section to be about the Switch 2 because it is very exciting, and just for me in general, this is going to be the first console release that I've been doing this podcast for. So I've been doing this podcast for a couple years now. I started in 2022, so that's after the PlayStation 5, after the Xbox Series X. And I haven't bought a PS5 Pro. I don't think you really need to. And, this is going to be the first console that I've been talking about on this show. I'm going to be talking about the release, talking about all the games, and, hopefully the podcast will be growing alongside the Nintendo Switch 2 success and hopefully some podcast success here, one day on the Dep Lewis Show. So, thank you, Nintendo, for all the wonderful information. I know some of it is a little bit hard to give, but I'm generally still excited for it. I have a lot of goodwill built up with Nintendo. They've have a proven history, and some of these prices, I don't want to say it's out of their control because it's not, but a lot of the pricing stuff in the world in general is going crazy these days. So I think it's a good example of this, but I think it's going on around a lot of places. It is going on around a lot of places, a lot of products, a lot of different areas, a lot of different avenues, and things in the world are becoming pricier. So you got to consider that with these video games. You got to be smart out there in the world if you can, and that goes to me as well. So the Nintendo Switch is coming June 5th, 2025. Hopefully I'm going to be having one on that Thursday. Some places are even doing midnight releases and things like that, and I'm really going to try my best to get one, and I'm going to be telling you about all the information about it regardless. So this is the best place to listen and keep updated with the video game world each week. And just thank you for listening to my Switch 2 talk here. And, I'm just excited. It's one of those things that felt like video game Christmas or video game Christmas Eve. It's just really, really excited to get that information. Had a great time watching the direct, and it's been a really fun time following all the information and beyond. Some of it I'm not, steamed about, or I'm not excited about, but I'm in a wait and see mode here, and there's a lot to be excited about, and that's the main thing I want to convey. So that's going to wrap up the midsection of the show. That's everything you need to know about the Nintendo Switch 2 at this place and time. And come back to the show every week for all the Switch 2 and Nintendo information and other information across the video game world you need to know. So that's the plan. So thank you for listening to this. We're going to have one final section of the show, the Miscellaneous Talk section, where I can talk about anything I want to outside the video game world. So listen to this music and come back for the final section after this. Welcome back to the final section of Dep Lewis Show, episode 123. This is the Miscellaneous Talk section where I can talk about anything I want to outside the video game world. So I want to keep you up to date with what is going on with my sports fandom out here in the worldwide world of sports. So I'm just going to go down the list here of my favorite teams and tell you what's going on with them. So the Carolina Panthers, my favorite NFL team, basically just waiting for 2025 for next season. The Panthers are going to pick 8th overall in the upcoming draft, which is taking place on Thursday, April 24th. So just a couple weeks away there on the draft. I don't really have a strong indication on what I think who the Panthers are going to take. I think they have a few positions of need, and I'm just thankful it's not a quarterback at this point. I mean, maybe I could see them taking one. I don't know. But I think this has been one of the most secure off seasons for the Panthers in a while of going into the season with their quarterback. So I am thankful for that. So, go Panthers, as all the things I want to say there on this podcast today. So getting into the NBA, the regular season is getting close to an end. My second favorite team is the Charlotte Hornets, since I am a North Carolina resident now. Last Sunday at New Orleans, I just got to say the Hornets have been doing some losing. So that's what you're going to expect here. So last Sunday against New Orleans, the Hornets lost 94-98. They actually won on Monday, 110-106 versus the Utah Jazz. Wednesday at the Pacers, the Hornets lost 105-119. Friday versus Sacramento, the Hornets lost 102-125. The Hornets play today at 1 o'clock. I believe it's here. I believe it's in Charlotte versus Chicago. So that's going on at 1 o'clock today. And then next week is the final week of the season. The Hornets are going to play Memphis, Toronto, Boston, and Boston again. So no LaMelo. He had his surgery, I believe, last week. A wrist and ankle surgery, trying to heal up some minor things there. So everybody on the Hornets kind of in rest mode, wait on next season mode. And that's been the case for the Hornets for a while now. So had some fun watching the Hornets, and got to keep you up to date with what's going on with them. A lot of losing. They're waiting for next season, definitely. They might be looking at the first pick in the NBA draft. And then my favorite NBA team, the Atlanta Hawks, I believe they've secured a play-in spot for the playoffs. So that's one thing. They've had a pretty mediocre season, or a little bit less than mediocre, I would say. But they're going to sneak in and potentially have a chance to get in the playoffs and make some noise, which, would be nice. But I do not expect them to do. But hey, I have a little bit of hope out here in the world. So the Atlanta Hawks last Sunday at Milwaukee, the Hawks actually won, 145-124. And then this week, the Tuesday versus Portland, the Hawks lost 113-127. Wednesday at Dallas, Hawks lost 118-120. Reverse shout out to Pab there, Mr. Dallas fan, which is sad that the Hawks lost to his team. And then Saturday versus the Knicks, the Hawks lost 105-121. So, a lot of losing to report there on my NBA team front, but I am kind of used to that. The Hawks actually played today versus Utah at 6 p.m. And then next week, the final week of the season, they're taking on Orlando, Brooklyn, Philly, and Orlando again. So the NBA, I'll be excited for the playoffs to take place. I'm going to be excited to watch the Hawks try to get, in the play-in and then try to get in the playoffs, and just be fun to watch some more. It's fun to watch meaningful basketball, and if your team can get into some meaningful basketball, that's nice too. So, not the highest of hopes, but, still interested in watching some of this, and we'll keep you up to date here in this section as always. And then my favorite sport in the world, Major League Baseball, and my favorite team, the Atlanta Braves, have been playing. It's been a rough start for the Braves, and I just want to tell you about everything going on since last week. So last Sunday at the Padres, 7 p.m. on ESPN. The result, the Braves lost 0-5. Smith Shawver was pitching for the Braves. And then Monday at the Dodgers, the Braves lost again 1-6. Before the game, it was announced that Jurickson Profar was suspended 80 games this season and postseason if applicable for violating MLB's PED policy. He tested positive for a performance-enhancing drug, will be eligible to return June 29th, and he's having a suspension without pay. So pretty crazy news. This has been a really crazy news week with the Nintendo Switch 2 and then having some of this Brave stuff going on. It's been really a combination of things I'm interested in, and some kind of, this is a bad one. So Jurickson Profar, the big offseason signing, pretty much the biggest offseason signing for the Braves. I think he got 3-year, $40-something million contract. is suspended for 80 games. And we really need him in the outfield right now. The outfield is decimated. We're waiting on Ronald Acuna Jr., my favorite player in the Galaxy, to get back. But other than Money Mike, we pretty much have kind of, utility or fill-in guys for the most part playing in the outfield. And I think Money Mike had a game off last week, and the whole outfield was pretty much those style of guys. Not that they can't blossom into a starter, but I think just currently, these guys on the roster aren't typically your starting outfielders. And it's just pretty rough with these things piling up. And, Profar not being able to help us for 80 games or potentially the postseason is a huge loss for the Braves. And he's definitely going to have to build some goodwill back up with the fan base, because he was one of the most exciting new guys on the team going into this season. So we got to see him for a few games. He was hitting leadoff for the team. He was getting on base. They were touting his on-base percentage. And, now we're not going to be able to see him for a while. So, and a switch hitter too. So that's, nice to have in the mix. But we got, Mr. Ozzie Albies, switch hitter extraordinaire, one of my favorite players too. So shout out Ozzie just randomly. But on this loss on Monday to the Dodgers, Grant Holmes pitched for the Braves and Class now for the Dodgers. Mike Harris had a bomb late, but the Braves were 0-6 after this one. Tuesday at the Dodgers, the Braves lost 1-3. Chris Sale returned for the Braves, and then Wednesday at the Dodgers, the Braves lost 5-6. Shohei hit a bomb in the bottom of the ninth to walk it off. So, talk about things happening this week. That was another crazy one. You're waiting on the third game. The Braves are playing better. They have a little bit of a lead. Raisel Iglesias was in there in the 8th and the 9th. He gave up a few in the 8th, and then he gave up the most deadly one in the 9th, a bomb to Shohei, and it was a no-doubter. And Shohei is an extremely amazing baseball player, and every time he goes up there, you feel like he's going to do something positive. And he's fun to watch, but not fun to watch when he's playing against your team. So this game Wednesday, the Braves had a decent lead and kept giving it up. And they ended up losing, getting swept by the Dodgers, getting swept by the Padres, getting swept by the Dodgers, being winless, going into the off day on Thursday. And then Friday night, the Braves got their first win of the season. They won 10-0 against the Marlins. Schwellenbach got the win and had 10 Ks, and it was a rout. So pretty exciting. I was out having some fun with some friends on Friday, watching most of the game. And then later on in the game, it was kind of a runaway, and it was nice to not have to pay attention and the Braves secure a win very, very easily. So almost, kind of fitting that I didn't actually get to see the end of the win just because I was out having fun. But, whatever. But they got a win, got that monkey off the back. They're no longer the Owens. And, I think there's a lot of work to be done here. But getting the first win is progress and something we really needed in the start of this, terrible season for the Atlanta Braves. Then yesterday versus the Marlins, the Braves lost 0-4. Another really disappointing game. I think the Braves are being booed out there. Smith Shawver started for the Braves and is 0-2. And he's also on my fantasy squad. My fantasy squad has also been pretty mediocre. The Braves played today in just about 30 minutes if you're in real time, if you're myself. So they're playing today against the Marlins around 1, I think it's a 1:10, 1:16 start, 1 p.m. So they're playing the Marlins today. And then for next week, there's no game on Monday for the Braves, and then Philly for 3. So those are in Atlanta versus Philly, and then at Tampa Bay for 3 to close the week out. So hopefully sprinkle a few wins in there with the Braves this week. They don't want to be doing, I don't want to be doing a dance for one win in 8 games or whatever it is. So I want to be seeing some wins, and hopefully the Braves can start getting on track here is the plan. So that's everything I have for the Braves, and go Braves. It's been extremely fun having baseball back in general, though. So just for some other baseball news, it's kind of big deal news. The Red Sox signed left-hander Garrett Crochet, I guess it's Crochet, to a 6-year, $170 million contract extension. The deal starts in 2026. The 25-year-old pitcher, he joined the Red Sox via trade from the Chicago White Sox December of last year, 2024. He's playing this season on a 1-year, $3.8 million contract. His extension kicks in starting next year and will include an opt-out after 2030. And I believe he pitched the game right after this was announced and had an outstanding outing. So congratulations to the Red Sox on getting an outstanding left-hander for 6 more years than you already had him. The Diamondbacks have also signed second baseman, one of my favorite players to watch, and follow Ketel Marte to a 6-year, $116.5 million contract extension. The deal runs through 2030 and includes a player option in 2031 for $11.5 million. This replaces the 5-year, $76 million contract that he signed in 2022 with the D-backs. With incentives, the entire package for the deal could be worth up to $149.5 million. The 31-year-old finished 3rd in the MVP voting last season and is an extremely fun player to watch. He was playing some outfield. He's there at second base now, and I think he's been a key cog in the Diamondbacks' recent success and will continue to do so for many years, getting paid very handsomely. And then the final bit of MLB news in general I want to talk about is Padres have signed 21-year-old center fielder Jackson Merrill to a 9-year, $135 million extension, paying a young guy very early, very handsomely. He's getting a $30 million club option for a 10th season and has a max value of $204 million. So, congratulations to them. I kind of do like the Padres, minus them sweeping the Braves early in the season. I think they're a fun team to watch on MLB TV and in general. And some pretty big news locking down their, current superstar and superstar of the future in Jackson Merrill. So that's everything I have for you in the sports this week. Those are all the updates on my favorite teams and just what's going on in the worldwide world of sports. So we talked about the Carolina Panthers, the Charlotte Hornets who play today, the Atlanta Hawks who play today, the Atlanta Braves who play today, and just MLB news in general. So I got 3 of my teams playing today. I would love to see 2 out of 3 of them win, one of those especially being the Atlanta Braves. So go Braves. Last thing I want to say here in this sports section. So that's going to wrap up the entire show this week. I want to reiterate some promotional talk from the beginning. Please follow Dep Lewis Show everywhere. Full episodes of Dep Lewis Show available anywhere you can find a podcast. Find the best place to subscribe and listen weekly. Places like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, Amazon Music, and more. Twitch.tv/Dep Lewis Show is a great place to follow. If you'd like to support the show even further than just listening, Patreon.com/Dep Lewis Show is available if you'd like to subscribe monthly. Also, Venmo at Dep Lewis Show is available any day, anytime, for any amount if you'd like to support the show. So just thank you for listening. This is the official Nintendo Switch 2 episode. I would like to say I'm very excited about that. I'm excited about Donkey Kong. I'm very, very interested in seeing when the U.S. is going to be able to pre-order the console. I'm interested to see if there's going to be a price increase, and I will definitely be keeping you up to date with all the Switch 2 information you need to know. Next week I'll return with more general video game information, but it is going to be Switch 2 heavy because that is one of the most important and exciting things going on around the video game world, and definitely the most exciting thing to me. I've been realizing Nintendo probably is my primary console in general. I go through waves, but Nintendo is one that I'm enjoying their games, especially from doing this podcast. You can look at my Game of the Year list, and they're pretty Nintendo heavy, so it's definitely something that I just need to be a little bit more aware of, that this is definitely, the creme de la creme for me for Nintendo, for video gaming, and something that, is worth it to me to follow and potentially spend some money on. So, go Nintendo Switch 2, wonderful, exciting news. It's a tough time to be a gamer, but it's also a great time to be a gamer. I would say it's a great time to be a gamer. You don't have to buy these things at release, and we have a bunch of wonderful games out there in the world, but certainly some things to be upset about with this release, and that's it. It's just an interesting news topic, and I'll be talking about it for many, many weeks in the future. So thank you for listening to this entire show. I hope you have a great week out there in the world. I hope you got a Switch 2 pre-order if you're able to. I hope you're able to get one in the upcoming weeks. Hope you bought some other fun video games. I hope you have just a good week in general, and if you're having a bad week, I hope it gets better, hopefully sooner than later. And I'm thinking about you here in this moment, wherever you are, whenever you're listening, and just have a great time out there. And thank you for listening to the show, especially. I really appreciate you being a listener, and I have so much fun doing this every week, and I'll be back next week for another episode of Dep Lewis Show. So thank you, and I will talk to you next time.